Welcome to Dylan Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Sessler. My co-host is Kyle Zahn.
How you guys doing?
We are here to help change the way the world looks at mental health, self-development, overcoming adversity, all sorts of different things. We're just here to talk. But thanks for joining us on episode 9. We're going to be talking about a subject that I've been really hitting big lately with a lot of my clients, a lot of my content. Hasn't gone that way yet, but it will. Values. And values are just so fundamental to life, and I'm excited to kind of get into this one.
Absolutely. Let's dive right in.
Yeah. So the first thing is, what is a value? What are values? Kyle, what are values? What do you think?
In my personal experience, values are something that is like an overwhelming passion, overwhelming how would you explain that? It's an overwhelming feeling within your body that this is what I live by. This is
I think this
is why I live.
Here's a Google search. Turn this one up. Your values are the things that you believe are important in the way you live and work. They should determine your priorities, and deep down, they're probably the measures you use to tell if your life is turning out the way you want it to.
That's deep.
Right? Pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing that I see so often, okay? People use their values as a lens only to help and guide or support other people. What happens? They get abused, right? So, like, people sit there and look at their own value as more or less the sum of what they can do for others. And that's such a massive failure in being a part of themselves, right?
Absolutely.
And really building core values and self-value. Because your value isn't determined by what you can do for others, right? Maybe that's your social value, but that's a different definition.
Yeah.
And that is not the social value of you. It should not be conflated within your self-value and your core values, because that's, your core values certainly do have an impact on how you are looked at outside of yourself. But here's the deal. If you don't have the ability to look at yourself and find value within yourself and what you can do for you, you aren't going to have very much social value. So realistically, one of the biggest problems that I see is that people are making decisions for other people to try and increase their value within themselves. And it doesn't work, because people don't turn around and be like, oh my God, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread all the time. They don't do that.
No.
And even when they do that, that isn't a guarantee that you're going to be happy with yourself when you finish.
No, it all comes down to the fact that it's that selflessness versus selfishness kind of thing too. You could give out so much and you can provide so much value for someone, but if you're not taking that same advice and looking within yourself, it's that self-awareness thing, and right. Defining yourself and making sure that your needs are also being taken care of. And your thought process is like, hey, I fully love myself in the way I am right now. It doesn't work.
Right. I mean, it has to be, right? Like you have to build your core values, right? So I'm gonna use a couple of examples of things that people are probably gonna kind of feel, right? Like, let's talk empathy, because who is the most abused person on the planet? Empaths. Right? People that have high empathetic ability, high empathic, feelings, abilities, whatever you want to call it, right? These empaths are abused constantly, right? They are overworked, overutilized, under-supported, undervalued, underappreciated, and yet they continue to give regardless of this feeling of knowing they're abused.
Mm-hmm.
And So let's talk empathy. Let's talk how this is practical, right? Like if your idea of empathy is to give to others first, what happens to you,
You
right?
suffer.
Right? Because you're not using your core value. If your core value is empathy and you're giving it to everybody else, you're not actually following the value of empathy, right? If you are guided by empathy, you're failing at it because you're not guiding yourself with empathy. You're not providing yourself self empathy, right? If you're not right, the right and wrong thing to do with empathy is not to disregard your thoughts and feelings and your story and your narrative to empower someone else's. It is to understand, guide, feel, appreciate, right? Know your own story and narrative and issues and problems, and then empower others through them, right? But that doesn't, you don't ever take away from yourself to give to others, because that is it's bound for abuse. You
Right.
will be abused. It's not a, if you do that, if that's all you do, guess what? You're going to be abused. And if the expectation is otherwise, then you're wrong. Like I'll have the argument until I'm blue in the face. Like you will be abused, right? Like it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And far too many people have proven that to me, both in my own experiences and listening to the experiences of others, is that you're going to be abused. And you can't sit on this value and call yourself an empath, call yourself, someone that's empathetic, and and believe that if you're not giving it to yourself, because being that empathetic person is also destroying you. So you're really not empathetic towards you. You have empathetic qualities, but until you are able to actually provide empathy to yourself, I think you're failing at being an empath, failing at being an empathetic person. And it's not a core value until you create the coreness of that value.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I just made a word, right? Coreness. Like until you really instill that value into your core, which is looking at the lens backwards, right? You should be looking at yourself and then allowing your eyes to see everything through the lens of looking at yourself outwardly.
Yeah,
Right?
and it comes down to an analogy that I've heard before. Like, how can you fill a cup for someone else if you're not filling it for yourself too?
Mm-hmm.
If your cup is empty, how can you provide value for someone else and also be able to fully appreciate yourself in the process, appreciate your values if you're just pouring them out onto other people?
Right. Yeah. I mean, like until you realize who you are, right, you really don't know what you're providing people.
No.
Because if you're providing people, um, if all you're doing is sitting with people and letting yourself be utilized for your ability to listen, what are you really providing people? If they're continuing to do the same things and you're telling them not to do those things, like what are you really providing them? Are you validating a person that is going to continue to do the wrong thing and then come to you for comfort in that wrong thing? And it's not always that simple, but like maybe it is, right? Like if you're allowing these people to come to you and not be held accountable, which was, I think, such a very valuable part of
Mm-hmm.
empathy that is lost, is that you can't just listen to people and then expect to just continue that process of never stopping them and always listening to them, because that's not empathy, right? Empathy is feeling what this other person is feeling, but also allowing them to see themselves within their feelings, right? Like if you're a very good empath, a very good empathetic person, right? And they're not interchange, like those two are not exactly the same. Um, you're able to allow people and show people themselves, which is in itself accountability, right? It's not just empathy, isn't just listening to understand, like I always try and, define it as. It's listening to understand, to bring people accountability, to reveal accountability, because it's not hard to just offer people like, hey, I know you're feeling this way, but have you ever thought about it this way? And asking that question allows people to see what they're really looking at within themselves. And then it becomes something that they can become accountable for, right? This feeling isn't real. It's a construct of my situations in the past. And I need to know, right? The difference between knowing and feeling is I need to really hyper focus on the knowing rather than the feeling. To know I'm safe, even though I fear. To know I'm at peace with myself, even though someone insulted me, right? And create this accountability within the relationship, right? That's what empathy really is. And if you can't create that within yourself, then what are you really giving to people?
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, right? If you're not giving them accountability, then they're coming back with the same feelings that you're going to listen to again, and it's going to hurt all over again. And that empathy didn't really do anything, right? If you really valued empathy, you would show them how to look forward and respect the potential for repeating our same mistakes, right? Like if I didn't have any empathy, I wouldn't, the people that came to me, I'd be like, get over yourself, right? Because like, without a doubt, everyone has repeated the same mistakes that they've made in the past. Even I have, right? And if I wasn't empathetic towards that, well, I wouldn't engage with my community, because I would think of them all as robots that I should expect you to be able to get over this stuff after the first time you make the mistake. That's not how the fuck life works. Like, that doesn't work. So you've got to be able to, as an empathetic person, also look at yourself when you make mistakes and realize that you have to forgive yourself, and you have to work through this process of holding yourself accountable through this lens. And it's a hard thing to do, but if you really want to have value within yourself, if empathy is your core value, you can't just give it to other people. You've got to give it to yourself.
Yep. And with that, realizing the empathy with accountability, you have to be able to realize that, hey, I did make a mistake, but also define what that meant to you and process it and learn through it. Because we come back to this over and over. Nobody's perfect. But if you can have this self-awareness to identify, hey, this is just a mistake and this is what happened in there, and how can I change it for the next time? You can learn from that and provide value, not only for yourself, but for other people who went through the same process.
Right. I think this all really comes down to, like, let's bring it practically,
Mm-hmm.
right? Why do we have values? Because we need to make decisions, right? Researchers at Cornell University, we make 35,000 conscious decisions each day. 35,000. If you didn't have core values, do you think that those decisions would be pretty fucking hard?
Yeah, and they could be irrational too.
Right.
It's like,
and that's what happens. Like, let me kind of bring it, let's just narrow it to mental health, right?
Yep.
If you're struggling with stuff, right, it like deeply, and this isn't like, I'm not saying core values are your medicine, right? It's not the medication that's going to change your life, but it has a part to play, and that needs to be addressed, right? Again, this isn't the end all be all. Core values are not going to be the thing that changes everything about you, but it will be a start, right? So if you're struggling with depression or anxiety or PTSD or bipolar or anything, are your core values representative of your process for moving forward? right? Are you empathetic towards yourself when you have depression? Are you too empathetic towards yourself? Do you not have any discipline within, that accountability? Is that accountability missing within that empathy? Right? I've seen it multiple ways, right? Like if you're too empathetic to yourself, you allow yourself to stay in bed all day. You allow yourself to watch TV all day. And it feels good. It feels better, right? Or it feels just comfortable enough in the uncomfort. And maybe you're lacking the accountability to say, I know I feel terrible. I do not feel like getting up, but I need to. Right. And then the accountability within that empathy is like, I know, right? Like, I know I feel this. I respect that. I don't know why. I don't know where it's come from or what it's doing to me. Well, I know what it's doing to me, but I need to functionally move. I need to make a decision because within my core value of empathy lies accountability, right? And the right thing for me to do is go to work rather than call in sick. The right thing for me to do is continue running my business rather than canceling all my meetings, right? Or the right thing for me to do is, even though I'm having a busy day, make a podcast, right? I've had back-to-back meetings since fucking 10, right? I haven't had a break, but I'm here. And it's okay, right? Like everybody's different, right? Some like maybe it's too accountable. Maybe you're too accountable, right? Maybe you're too disciplined, which is also another, right? We all live on a spectrum of these core values. And there's always something that you can be too much of or too little of. And if you're too accountable, you might be such a hardcore perfectionist that you look at these decisions and you're like, the only option is to go fucking forward, right? And you never take a step back and realize there is no empathy towards me. I'm always helping other people, but I'm never holding myself accountable to respect my feelings, respect my body. And guess what? If you don't respect your body and you don't respect the feelings that your body's trying to talk to you with, that's where medical issues come from, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a doctor, but I've seen a lot of stress in my life. I've seen a lot of stress in other people. And when you are stressed for a long time, it's medically proven that you are more likely, right, to get heart disease. You are more likely to get different health issues. Fibromyalgia has been linked to PTSD. Rheumatoid arthritis has been linked to PTSD. Heart disease has been linked to stress, cortisol, right? These things happen. And if you're hyper accountable, hyper disciplined, the question for you is, what are you doing to your body that you don't even understand that you're doing?
Yep. And comes,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So what I'm thinking here, with everything, like you with every choice that you make, there's always a consequence, whether good or bad, right? Some of them are well known, some of them aren't. With that, if you're making choices for other people and not for yourself, that's mentally taxing too, because you're allowing yourself to make choices to either benefit other people or making choices for them. When coming back to your core value, if you're not making those choices for your mental health or your just overall being, that can also come back to destroy you in the sense.
Yeah. I mean, think of like 35,000 decisions in a day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about if you make all of those or even 90% of those decisions for other people, and you don't create the impetus for giving yourself the opportunity to make those choices. I mean, the amount of work physically, emotionally, spiritually sometimes that you have to put forth to make those decisions and then question them, because so many decisions is like, the decision to talk to someone is one, but then the decision to say different things to each part of the conversation is two. Then you're going to decide how to think about them. You're going to decide how how you feel about them afterwards. And your core values, when you create that templated system of how to think, it allows you to create a system that you can interchange things, right? And allow for easier thoughts. It's why I'm like, I said it, I think in the last podcast, it's why I'm so fast, right? It's why I can make decisions so fast that are more or less right, for me. I shouldn't say right at all,
Right.
but, but they're right for me because I I've been an overthinker all my life. I still kind of overthink, but it's an efficient process for me now because my core values have made it such. My core values have allowed me to narrow down exactly what I need to think about rather than how I need to think about it. Like I don't sit here and play this game of is it right or is it wrong? I play the game of like, what can I do to narrow in on the process? I almost should rephrase that. It's the why that I don't think about. I don't think about why, why did I fail or not necessarily like why was I wrong or all these things. Like I don't, is it right, wrong? I don't play this game because what's wrong right now might come back to bite me tomorrow, but in 3 weeks, it might be the difference. It might be the right thing for me because that wrong choice that I made today will teach me a valuable lesson that maybe I hurt one person, or maybe I hurt a couple people, or maybe I insulted someone. But in 3 weeks, 10 years, 20 years, it could be the reason that I become better for thousands of people. Right? Like that's sometimes what I do, right? Like I say things on social media and I actually, I got to be full disclosure right here. Like there are things that I've held back and I probably shouldn't, that I thought were going to, maybe social media is not ready for that part of me yet, and realistically, maybe that's doing me a disservice. Right.
Yeah.
But I could sit here right now and be like, you're a failure, Dylan. You're worthless for not speaking your mind, even though you tell people to speak their mind, or I could be like, you know what? It's a gray area. It's a hard thing to do. Even I don't do all of it, and I can get over it.
Yeah.
Right. And I can create that perspective simply by focusing on what I want to think about rather than focusing on the why, focusing on the how, focusing on the dark, spiral of emotions and feelings that I can get from these things. That is it right or wrong? Well, maybe it's not about, like, it's easy to think about temporary right and wrong, but it's really hard to really comprehend long-term right and wrong, because I made mistakes in my younger years that I could have destroyed myself with all my life. But I allowed those mistakes, those younger year mistakes, to create the opportunity for me to understand and to be here to help people overcome things, to talk to people and empathize with people, and then guide people to understanding that. So those mistakes that I made, this is it. I'm here. I'm here because of them. And holy shit, I'm successful in some regards because of it. And if I didn't make those mistakes, if I didn't allow those decisions, right, the empathy part of me, right, that's my core value. Mm-hmm. If I didn't allow those mistakes to be okay in my head, then I would just be spinning. I'd just be this spinning wheel of self-loathing and lacking self-discovery and lacking, this ability to learn like I have and to process things really quickly. Because I would be tearing myself apart and I'd be distracting myself from the abilities that I really have. My core values allowed that, because I went back to the self-empathy and I looked at myself through that lens of self-empathy. And I started to characterize these decisions and understanding not about right and wrong, but around the value within them. Like, sure, it didn't turn out well, but it taught me something. it allowed me to see things from a different perspective. It allowed me to fail. It allowed me to succeed, or allowed me to do or have experiences that I wouldn't have had regardless, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's decisions. Decisions are so huge.
Right. I'm going to bring you back to when we first had our first conversation, right?
Mm,
Um, at that
okay.
point, I did not know my core values. I was more in it was a really bad funk, right?
Sure. Just
And
like anybody else.
yep. From that point on, just seeing how you operated and how I could take pieces of that and be like, all right, let me try to look within myself and find out what I've been, in a sense, holding back or not thinking about. And from that, I realized that I was being way too hard on myself throughout years and years of like pain and beating myself down because of my brother's passing.
Right.
From that, I wasn't giving myself I wasn't allowing myself to be able to be like, okay, this is why that happened. And it was not your fault.
Yeah.
I spent years just blaming myself and second guessing certain situations because I didn't want to, I guess I didn't want to feel.
Yeah. It's two things, right? It's a distraction,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's easy to fall into because you create negative feedback loops,
Mm-hmm.
right? Negative feedback loops are simple. It's like when you make a bad decision, how do you feel about it? Well, if you feel bad, well, guess what? You treat yourself accordingly. Like we teach kids to punish themselves for doing a bad job, right? Like sometimes it's how you love, right? Or how you were loved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you were loved in a sense that if you did something wrong, you were punished and then not appreciated. You know, like if you did something wrong, you were a bad kid. Well, how does a kid take being called a bad kid? Not fucking
Spiral.
well,
It spirals. It
right?
makes them
It's
feel like
terrible,
shit.
right? Like if you call a child a bad kid, guess what? He or she will become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and he'll fall into like, I'll be a bad kid. Like I'm not coming out of this one,
No.
and that negative feedback loop it just continues.
And
Like there is no bad kids.
no
There's bad fucking adults though,
bad
right?
decisions.
Yeah, and if you know, and I don't want to attack parents or anything like that, because sometimes this is how you grew up. This is how you were trained to teach kids how to be kids. But let me tell you, I think it's wrong. I think it's a failure,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you're doing it, change. You don't have to beat yourself up if you didn't know, right? Ignorance. Let's talk about ignorance for a second, right? Because I think ignorance should be a self-value,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm ignorant. And when you can recognize your ignorance, it becomes powerful, right? It allows me, when I say I'm ignorant, because I fucking am, right?
Yep.
I do not know how the monitor on my computer works. I don't, right? Like for some odd reason, I plug it into the wall, I plug it in my computer, and somehow a picture appears on this flat piece of thing, and I don't know how I don't know how it gets there, right? I'm super ignorant about that stuff, right? I might know people, I don't know this, right? So, and that's just one thing. Obviously, I don't know a whole bunch of stuff about people, right? When I walk into an interaction, I know what Kyle has told me about himself. I don't know Kyle that well, right? Like,
Right.
I don't know, you know, I don't know my wife that well. Like, let's be real. Like, I've known my wife for just over 5 years now. I don't know her that well. Like, I've got a whole lifetime ahead of us to learn, but guess what? I'm never going to know everything there is to know about my wife, because why? She makes 35,000 decisions a day. How could I ever know what that's like? How could I ever know, everything about my wife if she makes 35,000 decisions a day? Sometimes I don't even understand my own 35,000 decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ignorant. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to look at Kyle and learn from him. It allows me to look at my wife and learn from her. It allows me to, it creates the almost reaction to learn rather than to, to be the authority or be the, it's a fly, excuse me, to try and, be the authority in whatever interaction or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't need to be the authority. I'm just talking, right? Or listening. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm. And it brings me back to like the day we met too. It's like, I realize that I'm struggling, but deep down, I'm like, I'm fucking ignorant to what is going on with me right now.
That's such a profound statement when you really get it, right? Like 25 years old, I'm sitting there with a gun to my head and I'm realizing, I don't know what's going on in there.
Yeah.
Like this is pretty uncomfortable, like that when you finally get to that point of recognizing that you don't know what you don't know, your life changes. Like you allow yourself to not know, and you allow yourself to actually start learning for a change rather than thinking you know everything. And then all of a sudden these feelings pile up and these emotions bubble up and you explode. It's crazy.
Wow. Oh, it's a lot to ingest right there.
Right?
Yeah.
I love values. They're cool.
Yeah. And to think about it too, and the fact that we're ignorant at almost every moment in our life because there's always something new to learn. Like me, I don't know the first thing to do with like infantry tactics. Yeah. And you're over here like, I don't even know everything about infantry tactics. But the fact that
or Facebook ads.
Yeah, Facebook.
Or gardening. Right? Like, right? Or how to, I don't know, how to drive trucks, like CDLs. Like, I don't know anything about that.
No. And I don't even know the first thing of how to pave a road.
Right. And we take it for granted every single day.
Yeah, we complain about it, but sometimes we don't make the steps necessary to understand that process.
Yeah. Oh, so I went camping this last weekend, and this is I love this. So my core values: empathy, integrity, and learning. Learning is such a profound one, right? But not only those aren't my only values, right? Like I value nature, right? And as much as it's not like a characteristic, it's still a piece of me, right? So like your values don't need to be this characteristic of empathy or integrity or, this characteristic of doing, right? Nature, right? I love reconnecting with nature, and it upsets me when I don't get to do it. So, one of the things that I like to do is I like to go backpacking, survival camping with my boys, right? Like two guys that I deployed with in 2012. We go out and literally make a campsite on public land, and we have water filters, we have like saws, and we make our own camp. We try to rough it as much as we can. Obviously we're getting, our bodies are getting old after being beat up by the infantry for 10 years. And, so it's not full stupid. Right.
Yeah.
But it always amazes me how ignorant I am when I get out there and I'm like, I don't know what these plants are. I don't know if I can eat these plants. I don't know how to cook this food. I don't know how to, I didn't know I could light a fire in this way. Like I learned something new this weekend. That was Swedish candles, right? So when you split a log in 4 pieces and then you spread it out just enough and you put coals in it on the top of it and light a fire on top of it, that thing will burn like perfectly for setting a pan on top and cooking. It's great.
Huh.
Right? Like, but it's like, it's one log that lasts, it could last like 1 to 2 hours, right? Where a 1 to 2 hour fire would probably burn 3 or 4 logs sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a more efficient way to burn. still provides heat. Like it's ignorance, right? But when I step out into that environment, I learn so much. So it allows me to kind of understand myself more and connect with myself more. Like values are so powerful. And if you don't feel good about yourself, if you don't feel happy, if you don't feel at peace, right? And understand that your life is going to be hard, right? It's going to be a struggle, right? There's going to be points where it's just tough, right? But if you don't feel happy with yourself during those times, right? I've been through hard times, even recently, and I'm okay. I knew I was going to get through them. It sucked, and I worked my way through them, but I was at peace with myself the entire time. If you're not at peace with yourself, if you're not happy with who you are, then you really need to look at your core values, because if you aren't happy with your decision making, if you aren't happy with, you know, what you've done, I think part of its perspective and part of its core values is that you're not allowing yourself, right? So what we talked about last week with Henna, right? Allowances are so powerful. It's such a good word. I didn't realize how much I actually use allow, when I actually talk to people. I realize I use it more talking to Henna, which is phenomenal. But you don't realize just how important it is to allow yourself to make those mistakes and to learn and to be ignorant and to be just a part of your environment and be a part of nature and be a part of yourself. And core values allows you to redefine those decisions that you make every single day. It allows you to narrow in and focus how you make decisions, when you make decisions, why you make decisions, to whom you make decisions with, because there's people that you shouldn't be making decisions with. There's people you shouldn't be deciding to talk to certain people. And if your values don't stop you, it's a part of discipline, right? Core values is part of what makes discipline. It's not being punched in the face, right? That's not discipline.
No.
Right? Like I saw a TikTok the other day, like on child abuse, right? Like we call a child acting out and hitting an adult hostility or something like that. We call an adult hitting an adult assault, and yet we call an adult hitting a child discipline. It's fucking wrong. It's child abuse.
Big time.
Right? Like we punish, we have a negative connotation on people hitting people no matter what, except child abuse. It's discipline. It's wrong. Like it's discipline isn't physical. It's not pain. It should never be that. If it's pain, it's punishment. And punishment doesn't teach, right?
Yeah.
Core values is a part of discipline, right? Because it's a reminder and a lens. Sometimes it should be a lens, but sometimes it's a reminder, right? That's why you have regrets, is that it's a lens for you to look at your decisions and say, how will I feel after this is done? Is this an empathetic decision? Is it a right decision? Is it a decision that I'm going to learn from? That's my process. And it allows me to process these decisions so much quicker, because I know that on the back end, right, I have the foresight to look at the back end and say, I'm going to be happy with myself when I make this decision, or I'm going to force myself to be happy with this decision because I think it's the right one right now. And I can't Monday morning quarterback myself because I'm ignorant.
Yeah.
That's point in case right there is I'm ignorant. So I can't look at myself like I will in 6 days when this is all over, and I can look back at my decision and with more knowledge that I didn't have. I can't do that. That's not fair to me.
Right.
And that's self-empathy.
Wow.
Boom. Mic drop.
I'm digesting that one still. That was pretty good. Trying to think of a question here for you.
All right. hey, if we're done, we're done. Like it's
That was huge.
it's a big topic that, in the grand scheme of things, if you're really talking about a step-by-step process, which I don't think there really is a step-by-step process for overcoming
True.
yourself. Everyone's going to be different. Everything is going to be different. But if there's one thing, right? If there's one thing that you could focus on in the next 60 days to change your life, core values would be the number one, right? It'd be the first step for me. And it's becoming, the people that come to me and work with me, the first thing I really try and dive into, one, is obviously empathy. I need to know about you because I don't know anything about you. I've got the wonderful pleasure of sitting in front of people that know me more than I know them, every day. And I get free consultations all the time, and I get to learn. Like this is the part about my job I love. I get to hear the most incredible stories of overcoming, survival, just victory, right? For people that are going through some really incredibly hard stuff, but they're alive in front of me talking to me about it. That's such a victory, right? That's such a beautiful thing. And I love it. Like it just inspires me to just keep doing my job because I love watching people. They don't even realize it sometimes. And this is, they don't even realize that they're telling their own success story, but they're looking at it from a lens of, I'm not good enough. I'm not valuable enough. I'm not appreciated. I'm not appreciated by myself, or, like they're looking at it through this dirty lens that has been, has been spat on by everybody around them in their life. And for the first time, sometimes I'm the one that, I take my little cloth and and I'm like, look at it all. Look at everything that you've been through and look at who you are now. You're incredible, right? But I also hold them accountable. I'm like, but guess what? Like, my words mean nothing, because they do. They mean nothing unless you empower them, right? This podcast, if you're listening to this podcast right now, I want you to really listen to this part. If you like what I say, but do nothing with it, it means nothing, right? If you like the words that I say, but you don't apply them to yourself when they matter, right? If you don't say them, right? Like, my voice is one thing, but if you don't take my voice and make it your own, it means nothing, right? I can stand next to you and tell you, keep going, right? Keep going, get up and keep going. But someday when I'm not there, who's going to do that for you? If you sit there and rely on other people's voices to carry you forward and lift you up, then someday when those people who have always done that for you, have always validated you and supported you and carried you forward, when they're not there to give you what you've always expected to be coming to you, what do you think you're going to do? Nothing. You're going to give up, right? You're going to give up because you don't have that support structure, right? And I'm not going to judge you no matter what, right? Like, my dad did it. My dad gave up, right? He didn't think he had anybody. He created this self-fulfilling prophecy within himself that whether it broke his core values or not, like, he gave up, or he did something that he thought was right. Maybe he followed his core values. I don't know, right?
And you never will.
Right. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with looking at that situation and not knowing whether I'm right or wrong and how I think about it. Because that's not what it's about. It's not about what is right and wrong in me, because I don't know what was right and wrong in him. Mm-hmm. Right. I don't know what's right and wrong in Kyle. So I don't judge him for my right and wrong. If he fucks up, he fucks up for me. And I tell him, like, hey, Kyle, that wasn't the right thing that I wanted you to do. And I don't judge him if he fucked up, because if I didn't tell him, He doesn't know. And even if I did tell him, he may disagree with me, which means that someday me and Kyle might disagree, and maybe I should find a different co-host.
Congratulations, you just got demoted.
So, Kyle, I'm not informing you of your, early retirement as a podcast co-host, but like, that example is so profound sometimes, is that like, if you don't have that voice, right? And I don't care if you use mine, right? Take the words and give them some kind of value within yourself. Use them, right? Don't just write the quote up on the wall. I need you to feel those words and how they empower you, right? Invictus, right? It's on my wall, right? But that poem is embedded in my soul, right? That word Invictus, right? It's the name of my business, Invictus Development Group. Invictus means indomitable. It means unconquerable. And when people look at me, when people listen to me, when people talk to me, they fucking know. Why? Because I fucking prove it. Not to them. I don't give a fuck about other people and what they think of me. I don't. I really don't. Like, as much as people think, like, and I've had that conversation, like, yeah, you care about what other people think of you. Surface level, right? Like, I care enough to like know whether it's right and wrong in society, and then how to address that. If I think it's wrong, if I do something and I think it's wrong, I fucking know. But if I do something that's right and other people attack me for it, I'm just going to keep going. Right? Like, if I think it's right, I think it's right. Right? And if other people make a comment, I'm going to look at it and is it rational? Does it make sense? I'm going to, I don't care what other people think about me. I care about the information. If the information is right and wrong, I determine that within myself. I don't allow people's feelings to adjust who I am. I allow people's information to inform my decisions.
Yes.
And big fucking difference between the two, right? Other people's feelings do not determine your value. Other people's information can determine whether you are right or wrong. Right? So you can't just sit there and focus on what everybody else thinks of you. You can't focus on what everybody else gives you, right? This is the thing about nature that I love. If you don't have the fucking tenacity and the audacity to go out and live, you will die. That's why I go backpacking. It's why I go survival, camping, is that, we caught a sheep's head on a 9-foot pole that we cut down and tied a 6-foot piece of fucking fishing rope or fishing line to with a hook with a worm that we dug out of the ground. And we caught a sheep's head, a fish that people don't eat. They don't like them, right? We ate it. And we tried it 2 different ways. We tried to learn, right? We fried it on a skillet and then we smoked one. The smoked one was better. If you ever go camping and you need to eat a sheep's head, smoke it, please. It's much better. But anyway, if you aren't willing to step outside of your comfort zone and eat a sheep's head, as an example, if you aren't willing to step outside your comfort zone and go do things, you will die in nature. And nature is a beautiful example of life, right? If you don't take examples from nature of how to be a better person, you're failing yourself, because nature is the thing that determines life and death. Coronavirus, I don't care if it's made by humans or not. It's a virus. It is a part of the natural world, and it has evolved itself, and it kills us. Right? Like, yeah. I don't care what the politics around it is. It's a part of the natural world. Coronavirus is a family of different viruses, and they created themselves in nature. And if you're not audacious enough to do the same, if you're not audacious enough to create yourself and recreate yourself and adapt and survive and pay attention to how nature adapts and survives, like, you're losing. And you can't allow people's feelings to determine that value. And if you feel that, that's a point in your life where you need to actually start adapting and changing how you look at them so that you can survive and thrive in some cases. Because if imagine if electricity went out for weeks. Imagine if your water turned off, what would you do? Imagine if your electricity was off for weeks, what would you do? Imagine if the grocery stores had no food, what would you do? Right? Like, most people don't know how to survive just and provide for their basic needs. If we had no food, if we had no food in the grocery stores for 2 months, a lot of people would die in America. A lot of people don't know what they're doing.
And it comes back down to taking the information wherever it comes from and making decisions based off of what is in front of you.
Right. Develop yourself.
Yeah.
Develop your decision making. Make it fast. Right? Efficient. Make that more efficient. Make it more powerful. Incentivize making the right decision for yourself, not for others, for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I got up and I worked out today. Incentivize that. Don't negatively incentivize doing the wrong thing. Just positively incentivize doing the right thing. You don't have to do the self-loathing. Let me tell you this. You don't have to do the self-loathing. You don't have to do the self-harm. What you have to do is be kind to yourself. Empower yourself when you do something right. Celebrate it. Give yourself credit. When you get a compliment, what do you do? If you get a compliment and you say, no, stop. Don't say anything. If you can't say anything positive, don't say anything negative. It's powerful. It makes a difference. When you get a compliment, say, thank you. Appreciate that.
Right.
Simple. Right. I haven't always done that well. I'm
Me
getting
neither.
better.
Yeah.
Right. I don't I hate the idea of becoming arrogant. I don't want that. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not arrogant. I'm confident. I know what the fuck I'm doing.
Right.
But I'm not better than people.
Mm-mm.
And if anybody thinks that I'm better than them, that's their thought, not my thought. I'm not better than people. I say that in my sessions too. I'm like, listen, I'm just a dude. Right? Like, I'm not qualified to do anything crazy. I'm just here to talk to you.
Right.
And if that's what you want, if that's what you need, if you need someone that's honest, that has been through this hard process of redeveloping and redefining themselves, I'm your guy. Because I don't want to be better than you.
Yeah.
I want to be the best version of me. I'm not competing with people. That's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to compete with you. Right? Like, I'm not here to compete. I'm here to compete with myself and become a better version of myself, but not in a malicious way, in a positive way, in a way that can help others and support others. If I was arrogant, you know what I'd say? Get the fuck over yourself. Do better. I did it. It's what a lot of people do, right? Sure, they're confident. They're also arrogant if they think they're better than other people. Because quite frankly, if you haven't been through what, Beth from California went through, or Janice from Oklahoma, or John from Chicago, if you don't know what their life is like, you don't know and understand what those decisions were, what they had to make. Like, there's no guarantee you could have done any better. Quite frankly, maybe you would have done worse. Right? So I don't have the right to judge other people's decisions. I don't have the right to judge other people's core values. I don't. And I don't judge your value, whether you're better than me or worse than me, because it's not my right. I judge whether I'm better than the past version of me or whether I'm getting better. I can judge myself because I know what the fuck I've been through. And the same goes for you.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I did say I was going to talk a lot on this one.
I love it though. Providing value.
But we got to cut this short. I don't think, I mean, I could probably keep talking a long time, but I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to stay on values, you know?
Right. I get it.
Kyle, do you have anything to say in the final words of this episode?
Oh man. I mean, you nailed a lot of things that I've been thinking about. And I think one of the biggest things that drives me to keep doing what I'm doing on my end is realizing that everybody comes from a different society. Everybody is brought up a different way. So how can we expect to judge other people based on what they have been through, what they have internally processed? Because one, we don't know them 100%. Their environment, their time in their environment, that's who they are. And you're not them.
Yeah, it's ignorance.
And it's ignorance. And
we're all ignorant. Just accept it.
Exactly.
Stop being a douchebag. You're ignorant.
You just basically don't judge other people because you're not them. Don't put yourself in their shoes because you're not them and you're never going to understand them 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Worry about yourself before you worry about others.
Yeah. And then when you have the opportunity to worry about others, understand that you're ignorant.
Exactly. You're going to learn a thing or two from them.
Yep. And give them, like, this is the biggest thing. I know we talked about it a while ago, but give them the opportunity to teach you.
Yeah.
Biggest thing, right? So many people are sitting in a conversation like this, waiting to respond, to tell you what it's like, rather than sitting there and hoping that they teach you something. And even if they don't, still keeping that hope alive and pushing for more knowledge. Like, Kyle, give me something awesome. Let's learn, right? You know, I don't always sit in conversations and learn things. That's okay. But I certainly try every single time. And I think that's the most fundamentally important thing you can do as a human being in today's society, especially because we like to sit on our high horse and tell people all the things that they don't know, instead of just trying to have a conversation about the things that we both knew and come together to a conclusion that helps us both. Like we have the mindset of an argument. It's so jacked up right now. And again, we could go on for hours and days and years, but I think it's just a fundamental issue is that we don't like to have conversations. We like to have
communication is key.
Yeah, communication. Yeah. So with that being said, if you want to join my inspirational text platform and get a chance to, well, you know what? You can feature your question if you want. But here's the thing. If you haven't joined my inspirational text platform, it changes you. I've seen it so many times. So many people respond to me and tell me, like, these messages mean everything to me. If you are struggling, they help. They are literally my daily thoughts. Just because I'm sending them to so many people doesn't mean I'm not paying attention to what's coming back. I see your thoughts. I see your responses. I don't respond to every single one of them because I can't, but I do pay attention, and I do try and narrow it to what you guys need. And I provide you value every single day. Something positive comes to you every single day. I guarantee it from this platform. Join it. If you're looking for something to take my voice and make it your own, again, you have to make it your own. Text your question, text your comment, text hi. I don't care. You could text a period if you want. You'll get a couple auto responses, and then everything comes from me. And if it doesn't have that little squiggly line, Dylan, after it, that's me talking to you. All right. text me at 1-608-336-4480. It's in the description below, whether it's on YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It's right there, okay? But finally, thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode. It's been a pleasure. I always love talking about values. It's my thing. And join us next week. I know we said last week that we'd be talking to Clay, but some things happened, so we'll be talking to Clay next week. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Boom.
Money.